Archaeologists are digging primer channels of a site called Slope at near a Belgian town called Wijtschate. It was the location of brutal battling in the Second Great War for sure. This land parcel on the Messiennes edge changed hands no less than multiple times during that contention. But before we get started, hit that subscribe button and become a part of our community of like-minded individuals who love history facts. Let's get started. As the scientists mindfully examined the Earth, obviously they are at an uncommonly all-around safeguarded the Second Great War site, yet they additionally uncover sobering proof of the conflict's distinct mercilessness. At the point when archaeologists dug in Flanders fields, they made a sobering revelation underneath the dirt. Today, the town of Wijtschate in the Belgian district of Flanders is a quiet provincial town set and moving open country. In any case, in the long periods of the Second Great War, this rustic little turned into a horrendous combat zone that saw unpleasant battling among English and French powers and the German trespassers. The Germans overran Wijtschate from the get-go in the conflict. As a matter of fact, minimal over 2 months after the Second Great War threats had begun toward the start of August 1914. The Germans had cleaned out English and French protectors off of their situations around Wijtschate. Without a doubt, German powers prevailed with regards to holding on to the length of the Messiennes edge, a decisively significant level that directed the encompassing Flanders farmlands. After the Second Great War finished in the Butcher in Flanders was not anymore the war zones around which shade were lowered by soil. As the years went by, what had occurred at the slope at site somewhere in the range of 1914 and 1918 was entrusted to the past lost in the fogs of time. However, at that point, just about 100 years after the fact, designers obtained a land parcel close to Wedge, formed fully intent on building new lodging there. As a matter of fact, their arranged building site was right on slope by then. Be that as it may, Belgian guidelines connecting with building tasks and prehistoric studies became an integral factor. At the point when another development project is arranged, the designer is expected to embrace an archaeological study of the proposed region. For this situation, a specialist called Simon Verda. Jim was brought in to make a fundamental overview of the sloped area, and what Verda, Jim, and his group found during the underlying examination in 2015 dumbfounded them. They dug shallow starter channels to survey what could lay secret under the Flanders turf. It immediately became evident that they were at the site of a significant, the Second Great War German protective situation on slope at, and taking into account it was extremely cold, the arrangement of channels and fortifications seemed to be incredibly very much safeguarded. Verda Jim was quick to see this site appropriately uncovered. In any case, the designers were simply ready to spend a restricted sum on paleohistory. This would imply that any examination would be substantially less careful than what Verda Jim had as a top priority. So if he somehow happened to accomplish his point of a full removal, where was the cash to come from? Verda Jim thus went to see one of the engineers addressing the German Telecaster Deutsche Welle. In July 2018, Verda Jim recollected his gathering. I requested that he give me additional opportunity to check whether I could find arrangements, he reviewed. Fortunately, the designer consented to freeze development action, to some extent for the occasion. In any case, the clock was ticking, and afterward Verda Jim thought of a roused thought. A wide range of endeavors were depending on crowdfunding to fundraise. Why shouldn't the Second Great War archaeological dig take a similar course to raise finances? It had been finished previously, yet doubtlessly it merited an attempt. So Verda Jim joined forces by Combat Zone Master Peter Doyle and German specialist Robin Schaffer set up a Kickstarter page. The Kickstarter page pronounced, "With your help, we intend to uncover the site and uncover the front line to build how we might interpret the Channel War, and of the ones who battled there before the site is lost to lodging improvement." In any case, would individuals truly approach with assets to exhume the slope at site? Somewhere else on the Kickstarter page, vertiginous underscored the direness and meaning of the allure. Unfortunately, this one-of-a-kind front line stays an ideal objective for lodging, and there's simply no time left to save it, he composed. Given the significance and one-of-a-kind person of this site, it requires a full-scale exhuming. There ought to be no half measures. In addition, the clever Verda figured out how to draw in some help from English big names. Dan Snow was a profoundly regarded television student of history, and Al Murray is a well-known entertainer who ends up having a set of experiences degree from Oxford College, and both loaned their help to the elder. Presently, the raising money exertion started to pick up speed when every one of the commitments were added up. As a matter of fact, the allure had raised in excess of 200,000 well, an overabundance of its objective of nearly 160,000, near 3,000 individuals had contributed with vows huge and little, and the allure had gotten assets in alternate ways too. including all that from offering potential chances to be a classicist at slope promotion to selling shirts. So the slope promotion site was saved and the undertaking could go on, which it to be sure did in April 2018. What was likely the first crowdfunding appeal for a paleohistory project had been an extraordinary achievement, and in no time well investigate exhaustively what the unearthing uncovered, including some stunning proof of the butcher or close quarters conflict. However, first let's figure out more about what really occurred at the sharply challenged slope during the Second Great War. Before the frightfulness of the Second Great War barged in 1914, the land around Wijtschate along the Messiaen's edge where slope promotion is found was quiet farmland. To be sure, a wooden constructed plant remained there, yet that was all to change when the English and French laid out cautious situations along the Messiaen's ridge. The Germans went after from October 20, 1914. Following a couple of long stretches of severe battle, the German fighters removed the English and French getting the Messiaen's ridge, including the place of misery at it, which formed a large part of the guard around Wijtschate, which English troopers called Wijtschate had tumbled to the main London Scottish regiment that had just barely come to the front. On 31 October, the main London Scottish was shipped off, helped the 4th Cavalry Detachment, which was hanging tight around Wijtschate. The Scots set up on the level of the edge under weighty fire. They hung on against rehashed German assaults as the night progressed. However, ultimately, after close quarter battle, they were driven once again at the expense of exactly 400 dead and injured. The Germans presently held the essential levels of the untidiness in flexible wedge form, which managed the cost of them continuous perspectives across adversary lines. This piece of the Western Front was to stay pretty much static for the following over 2 years. That span permitted the Germans to assemble an intricate arrangement of channels and underground dugouts. What's more, from 1916, the English were at that point intending to hold on to back the Messiaen's Rijgen slope at the initial segment of the arrangements to retake Wijtschate included a complex mine activity. They before long wrecked what was left of the broke German safeguards. A significant part of the historical backdrop of WWEI's Western Front is a story of unfortunate initiative and unbeneficial attacks acquiring little measures of ground. By those norms, the attack on the Messiaen's edge was an extraordinary achievement. The activity had accomplished its objectives in around a portion of a day, and the chaos edge was gotten, its directing levels denied to the German powers that had involved them for almost 3 years. The battling wasn't over yet. Notwithstanding, the Germans mounted a counter-assault the day after the English capture of the Messiaen's ridge. As a matter of fact, in spite of the fact that they were effectively opposed, more modest German Sardis went on until the center of June, however failed miserably. The time had come to count up the setbacks on each side. Uncommonly, for the Second Great War assault, the safeguards had fallen off more terrible. German misfortunes remained at exactly 25,000. The comparing English figure was around 17,000. Besides, the Germans later got back to what little was left of which conceal about a year after the fact, in the German Army's significant spring hostile of April 1918. It prevailed with regards to wresting back control of the town. It was September before the English figured out how to retake the town for the last time. And this time they got help from American fighters too, and by then, the finish of the Second Great War was only weeks away. So as we'd seen, which help had seen a progression of concentrated fights, yet it had likewise been a side involved for almost 3 continuous years by the Germans, permitting them to construct a broad protective post. Furthermore, those 2 variables made it an enticing area for prehistoric studies. To be sure, this was something that Simon Verta Jim had clarified on the expectation slope at undertaking site. On the site Verta, Jim made sense of as a site that was under danger from improvement. Prehistoric studies was fundamental, yet its surprising importance was recognized by starter research, which its uniqueness and of the uncommon conservation of its covered archaeological relics. As a matter of fact, the site has been portrayed as the main universal conflicts Pompeii slope promotion. The Archaeologists before long found has a perplexing assortment of channels. What's more, part this mirrored the way that the site, which covers almost 3 sections of land, had changed hands so often, and one component specifically contributed extraordinarily to the locale's remarkable degree of conservation. A huge extent of the area had at any point been put under the furrows since the Second Great War finished up in 1918, in light of the fact that various safeguards and aggressors had involved the site so often during the Second Great War. While some channels had plainly had a place with the Germans, others were challenging to recognize. A number seemed to have been dug by the French likely in 1914, at the hour of the main fight at Slope when the Germans held onto it. The most unquestionable proof for this was the presence of French little arms, weapons, and different relics that rose up out of Flanders earth when the scientists painstakingly dug into it incorporated a water bottle and blue finish, as given to English region warriors and an ammo pocket. There was likewise an impactful sign of the regular human kind of those who battled about Slope 80 as a wrecked brush plainly engraved with the bogus commitment solid. However, other substantially more upsetting proof of the situation that transpired at Slope and during the Second Great War additionally started to show up, blended in with a tangle of belongings and military hardware. Both German and English human remaining parts before long started to arise. In General Promotion Site Verta, Jim depicted the effect of such finds. Finding human remaining parts on World War I front lines is something that you never become acclimated to, Verta Jim wrote in each removal crusade. You realize that it can work out, yet every time it does, it thumps you off your feet only for a couple of moments, and afterward you change back to work mode and ensure you do it right on the grounds that everything about. Furthermore, the Paleologist made sense of why it was so critical to fastidiously portray all that was revealed during the dig. The more data you accumulate, the greater the opportunity that the man lying there can have a name again. Verta Jim made sense of. Tragically, by and large, this is a waste of time. In such circumstances, the most you can achieve is guaranteeing that he gets a legitimate entombment. Eventually, the archaeologists uncovered 110 arrangements of human remaining parts during their unearthings at Slope. These were spread around the 430 shell cavities and 1,800 feet or so of channels that the specialist is on the planet. Thanks for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a thing.